Hello, welcome to another free GCSE History online session. Today we are covering AQA site study on Burghley's Almshouse. In this session there'll be a quiz testing your knowledge on Burghley's Almshouse. Do have a look at our revision video as well from free GCSE History site, and also then we will cover an exam question on Burghley's Almshouse and how to do the 16-marker question. So join us for lesson today. So this year, Burghley's Almshouse is a crucial topic if you're covering the Elizabethan paper for AQA. And in this session, I'm going to give you a thorough guide on how to answer questions successfully. So firstly, we're going to do the little revision quiz. We're going to talk about the Burghley Almshouse key facts. So if you've covered our video on Burghley's Almshouse or looked at our quiz notes on Burghley's Almshouse, then this should be easy for you and a nice little test. So pause the screen, have a go at this little quiz, see how much you can remember. Away you go. Okay, so let's go through some answers. And what you'll notice is there's some key themes here about Burghley, about Burghley's Almshouse itself, and about themes like Puritanism and religion, and also Burghley showing off his wealth and status. And these are some of the key themes we need to cover in this topic. So hopefully you've done well in that quiz. If not, also you'll need to revise the knowledge as well as working out your essay skills. So do use our Quizlet resources and our other YouTube clip to cover this content. Okay, so here's the type of question we're going to look at. Question 4, it's the last paper in the exam, and it's a statement and how far do you agree? So in this question, it's almshouses were built in Elizabethan times as Puritans wished to help the poor. How far does your study of Burghley's Almshouse support this view? So it's the idea that Burghley built his almshouse because he was a Puritan helping the poor. How far is this correct? Okay, so what we need to do in the question, we do need to tackle that theme of Puritans built almshouses to help the poor, but we also need to cover two other ideas. We'll think of those during the lesson today. We need to use our peel paragraph skills. We need to use good facts and knowledge about Burghley, his almshouses and why they were built. We need to compare to other almshouses and the people who built them. We need to evaluate arguments, think about ways they're correct and not correct. So we're giving both sides the argument. And that will help us come to our clear judgment at the end. How far we agree with the statement is mostly or partly correct. So reminders on peel paragraphs then before we move on any further. Okay, so in this particular question, remembering to set up your argument, repeat the question back and make your argument. So I mostly or partly agree that almshouses were built by Puritans for helping the poor because, and set up your argument. Give your evidence. So Puritans would do this. Okay, give an example of what they did, give some facts. Explain how Burghley's Almshouse might support this view. Think about what happens at Burghley's Almshouse. How does it show religious and Puritan ideas? Maybe hard work or remembering the 10 Commandments or some Bible stories. Okay, have a think about it. Then if you think it's really convincing that they did build Burghley's Almshouse to help because of his Puritan values, you need to give another explanation. Furthermore, his Puritan values are shown at Burghley's Almshouse because of this. If you think it's not so important, you could give a weakness, maybe ways it doesn't quite show it. So evaluate your argument. So you'll end up with a paragraph a bit like this. Okay, so a study of Burghley's Almshouse does mostly support the view in a statement because Puritans believed they had to help the poor as part of their religious duty. For example, Puritans strictly followed religious teaching in the Bible and the message of Jesus to help the poor and love thy neighbour. People like Archbishop Whitgift encouraged rich Puritans to build almshouses to support the many poor people in their communities. So you've got your point at the top, and then you've got some evidence about Puritan religious values. So we've got a comparison to Archbishop Whitgift, who was Archbishop in Elizabeth's time. He built an almshouse with Puritan values. So we're comparing to other people as well. Then explain how Burghley's Almshouse supports this idea of a Puritan almshouse. Burghley's Almshouse mostly supports the idea in the statement, as his almshouse was closely associated with the local church, St. Martin's, on Burghley's property. Further to this, a nice connective phrase, think about using it, folks. Burghley wanted the 13 people in his almshouse to be honest Christians who had to learn the 10 Commandments and attend church in Burghley's house colours robed. Therefore, Burghley built his almshouse and spent much of his wealth on religious care and to spread Puritanism. However, also making people wear his religious robes also suggested he wanted to leave a legacy and spread his reputation. So quite a thorough paragraph there. We've got 2 or 3 explanations. We've even got a little evaluation at the end with the however. Okay, so if you can aim for something like that, having that level of knowledge, you could do well. So what are the other arguments then? We've got to do 2 other paragraphs. So, and that might well be, when you hear that, a bit of a mind-blown scenario, okay? And that might just be thinking about the first one. And then when you've got to think about a second one, it might be a second mind-blown scenario. So let's get on with thinking about these. So point number 1, you'll see in many other questions, if you sort of looked around, people talk about almshouses for social status and the great chain of being the other argument to make. So obviously you can talk about the great chain of being for social status. They're at the top, they have to care for the poor at the bottom. You could talk about the monasteries being removed. You can think about your Henry VIII knowledge, and alms to the poor became more and more important. You could think about knowledge for Burghley. He showed off he was helping the poor with the Burghley robes. He had a newsletter printed in 1597 with his almshouse rules. Also, other nobles did this as the top of the great chain, like Dudley and in his almshouses in Warwick and Kenilworth. And we also mentioned Whitgift earlier. Okay, so the second argument is obviously improving the morality of the poor. So obviously there were lots of vagrants and vagabonds. You might remember Harman's book with the poor behaviour, with the bare-top tricksters and other people who were tricking people and scamming people, pretending to be ill perhaps. So you remember that from your basic notes on Elizabethan topic. Okay, perhaps you then could go on to explain how Burghley's almshouse wanted to provide a religious education, improve the morals of people, make sure they did an honest day's work and earned money. But you could also talk about how actually he didn't want to help lunatics and drunks, people who were really poorly behaved. He only wanted to help those people who had had a good trade and he could really improve their lives. So perhaps that's not such a strong argument because he doesn't really want to improve society overall, just a few people in his area who've already had a trade and fallen on hard times perhaps. Okay, so have a go at one of those paragraphs, if not both. Think about the writing frame we've got here. Okay, to help you do that, remember to evaluate at the end and thoroughly explain. Okay, obviously you can flick back through the slides and goes back to the table, come back to this writing frame, and good luck. Wish you all the best with your practice. Okay. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful and you found out lots on how to answer the Burghley's almshouse question. And subscribe and look out for more lessons coming up soon. Bye-bye.